welcome to another Doctor Who custom action figure review. Today I am looking at the Jo Grant custom that I made for the Cyber Incursion. The base figure for the Jo Grant is Astrid from Voyage of the Damned. I used the single release Astrid without the apron, but you could just use the apron one, whatever you can get your hands on, really. Now, I wanted to do Jo in her costume from Day of the Daleks, so Astrid seemed to be the most obvious choice due to the skirt and things. So I'll tell you what I did to begin with. First of all, I removed the rubber that makes up Astrid's blouse, and I pulled that off, threw that away. I then trimmed the skirt slightly just to make it shorter. From there, I then rubbed down the hair on Astrid, not completely until she was bald or anything, but just enough to keep the resculpt hair from being ridiculously large. So from there, I went on to sculpt the body of Jo. This was fairly easy. The top part of her dress was just moulded in milliput. It was sculpted directly onto the plastic torso that was beneath the rubber blouse. So that was just a bit there, and then the straps were just sculpted in. If I just zoom in there, if I can. As you can see there, just sculpted in. And then the buttons were just small circles of milliput. And then on top of that, I sculpted the collar of Jo's shirt underneath. And then the next part was to do the necktie that she wears. This was simply a case of getting a very small bit of milliput and rolling it into a sausage shape and just tucking it behind the collar just to make it look like the tie was wrapped around her neck. The knot was just like a little square, and then this was just flattened out and cut into that sort of shape, and then just a few layers were added on top just to give it some folds and things, and just scratched some of those folds in using a safety pin. And then from that point I moved on to sculpting the hair. Now the hair is quite difficult on this. I wanted to make, one of the things that's good about this, with this Jo, is that her hair isn't isn't really long or anything, and in the story her hair isn't straight. It's been styled to look a bit wild, which is good, which means you don't have to have it all neat and tidy or anything. So it was really a case of just putting a large lump of milliput over the sanded down hair. As I said, it wasn't sanded down completely, it was just a little bit. And then from there, this sort of went straight down, and it was slightly longer, it was probably down to here, and then I basically just curled it up around the sides, and it was really a case of twirling it around, getting a cocktail stick as well, and just sort of spinning it round on that, just to give it that sort of curled effect at the bottom. That was quite difficult to do because it's quite fiddly stuff, and it does break easily when you're trying to mould it at times, so that was that. And then the hair was just sort of sculpted in using a safety pin again, but some of the details were done slightly differently. And if you look at the front here, she's got some bits of hair that just sort of come down there and round by her eye. Those were really just tiny little pieces of milliput cut off, or I actually cut away and cut these little gaps out as well. And you also have some other bits here that sort of fold around, just little sausage shapes of milliput rolled up and just stuck to the rest of the hair. And from there I then added on the pockets to the front of her skirt. And I just cut the shapes out like that and stuck them on, and then just sort of cut in a line using a safety pin like that. These don't stay on very well due to the fact that this is obviously rubber. They don't stick very well, so they do come off now and again. You have to just glue them back on. And then from there I just painted the figure. So the boots were just repainted white. A couple of coats of that because the white doesn't always come out great on the black. The legs were then repainted as well, and some red detailing was added to the front of the boots. I then went on and painted the shirt first before going on to the blue bit, and I just painted it this sort of orangey colour, which is actually the same colour as her necktie. So that was all painted and the necktie was painted. Then I went on and painted the dress, which was just solid blue. Didn't come out great on the skirt originally, that took a few coats. And then from there I basically just did the detailing on the shirt. So that's just some white stripes. You don't want solid thick white stripes, you do want to be able to see some of the colour coming through, as it does have that sort of faded effect on her actual shirt. So I just did the white stripes first, across the arms. Those are quite easy, it's just 3 on the arms, a bit on either side of the tie, and then on the collar as well. And then on either side of the white stripes you have a blue stripe, and then you have blue stripes going across. And then from there just painted the 2 buttons of her dress red. And finally it was just a case of painting the hair. This is just sort of a yellowy, browny yellowy colour. And then I just added some brown in the top of her head and just between some of the hairlines as well. And then just to finish it off, I also added some white in between the gaps of the pockets for the denim effect, and painted some silver rings on her hands, because we all know that Katie Manning wore lots of rings on her fingers. And that's basically it for Jo. Quite a simple custom. Nothing. I didn't do anything with the face apart from repaint her eyes, and yeah, there wasn't really much that I didn't want this to be a ridiculous sort of complete overhaul custom. So although she still looks a bit like Kylie Minogue facially, you can get away with it with the outfit. And so yeah, it's not too difficult, just a bit of fiddly sculpting with the hair, but apart from that it's quite a nice one to do, and I think she looks pretty good with the 3rd Doctor figures. So thanks for watching guys, and I shall see you next time.